as she introduced me, my name is Reyam. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I live currently in Canada. I have done my medical school at Saudi, my master's degree, and my other degrees here in Canada. Okay, so let's start. My research was about cannabis use in Muslim youth. Okay. Introduction. Cannabis use most widely cultivated, used and abused illicit drug globally. 47 million users globally, about 20.5% of global population. Cannabis use causes many acute and chronic health-related issues. Sorry about that. Cannabis use causes many. Cannabis use countries are issuing public health policies and legislation to help limit these harms. Muslim youth have their share in cannabis use and abuse, although it's forbidden in Islam, but they're still using. Most Muslim youth cannot seek help for health issues related to cannabis due to stigma and fear of becoming social outcasts. Adolescents and teenagers are the most likely age group to engage in cannabis use. Rationale. Explore the best ways to reduce cannabis harm in Muslim communities. Identify population-based studies in Muslim communities about cannabis use and its prevalence. Explore the availability of prevention and treatment programs. Cannabis. The cannabis plant produces over 100 cannabinoids. The THC and CBD, which is tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabidiol, being the most prominent cannabinoids. THC and CBD are both similar chemically to human bodies, cannabinoids, which makes them interact with the body's cannabinoid receptors in the CNS, respiratory, and GI systems. Cannabis affects the body through these systems, which is CNS, respiratory, and GI, and influence appetite, sexual activity, mood, nausea, and pain. CBD and THC. CBD is a non-active component in cannabis. It's sold in gels, gummies, oils, supplements, extract, and more. THC, it's the psychoactive component in cannabis, which produce the effect of high and euphoria. And this is why teenagers use cannabis, to get this euphoria or high feeling. THC can be consumed also in the form of oils, tincture, capsules, edible, or smoking in the cannabis. Okay, cannabis in researching adolescents, cannabis use, it has been found that extensive use of cannabis can change developing brain by altering its circuitry. Cannabis usage can lead to structural changes in middle temporal regions, the amygdala, hippocampus, frontal, and cerebral regions. Cannabis use is associated with anxiety, forgetfulness, dry mouth, and decreased motivation throughout the day. Cannabis intoxication and withdrawal. Intoxication causes euphoric feeling, laughter, increase in appetite, restlessness, forgetfulness, dry mouth, and increased heart rate and reddened eyes. The withdrawal symptoms. Okay, so withdrawal in heavy cannabis users commonly cause depression, loss of motivation, interest, concentration, and mood swings. Islam and cannabis. Islam is a religion that serves and prescribes a way of life for Muslims in a protective and unifying way. Its followers are diverse from different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. It means Islam it's not related to one ethnic like Arabs or others. No, it's worldwide. Although illicit drug use is considered forbidden, many people in the Islamic world engage in such activities. Cannabis was permissible in Islam even before it was used for medical purpose in Iran. It was not until cannabis became associated with war, violence, and malevolent behavior that it becomes forbidden in Islam. The debate addressing whether or not its use should be permissible are relevant to today's theologians and philosophers of Islam. Muslim countries are beginning to see an increase in the use of cannabis. In Egypt, cannabis addictions it's on the rise and creating dangerous habits, including driving while under its influence. And one or two of the studies shows that driving under influence of cannabis it's similar to driving under similar of alcohol, which is dangerous. Islamic legislation, the permissible use of or prohibition of cannabis is based on the similar concept of forbidding alcohol. So any brain-altering substance is forbidden in Islam. Any behavior that might cause an individual to act in a malevolent way, causing harm to either oneself or society, is forbidden in Islam in order to lower the corruption rate among society. Harm reduction is a purpose of Islamic law. Because harm reduction is of a high importance in Islam, introducing harm reduction strategies for Muslim youth should be equally high importance. Harm reduction is meant to reduce any distress that can be inflicted upon a person by themselves or others, leading to a major, joyful, and peaceful life. The focus of Islam is not solely on preventing and reducing anguish, but it's about giving a more abundant life, especially in relation to health. Okay, now we're going to talk about age prevalence of cannabis use in Muslim countries. It is the most common illicit drug used in Turkey among 20 and 29 years old. It's also the most common drug used in Saudi Arabia, followed by amphetamines. So in Saudi Arabia, we saw a shift around maybe around 10 years ago from heroin, cocaine to cannabis and amphetamines. Okay, women in Saudi Arabia who are single or divorced consume cannabis more than married women. In Tunisia, a self-administrated university questionnaire showed that 5% of university students who participated used cannabis. Okay, risk factors for cannabis abuse. In Saudi Arabia, 68% substance abuse was a result of peer pressure. So peer pressure, it's a huge risk factor, I believe, everywhere. Cannabis consumers reported that their initial use started with friends. A high correlation between social relations and drug abuse has been identified. In Saudi Arabia, women are found to use cannabis through their families. Risk factors. The cannabis abuse, 25% of cannabis users report being unhappy in their marriage or social life. So unhappy marriage and unsatisfied social life it causes actually to a cannabis abuse. Smoking tobacco is considered a gateway for exploration of other drugs, including cannabis. Abuse of prescription medication can also lead to using cannabis. Men, it's a risk factor. Being a male, it's a risk factor. So men are twice as likely as women to abuse drugs. Risk factor for cannabis abuse continue in Iran. A study amongst university students found that students with lower level of religious beliefs were more likely to partake in cannabis use. Therefore, religious belief can be considered as a protective factor. Okay, in the UK, a study conducted on Muslim youth in Western communities showed that cannabis use among Muslims is becoming more normal and that they engage in smoking cannabis through their friends. These youths tend to live in lower socioeconomic areas and have less access to education and health service. The availability of cannabis in these low economic neighborhoods has become so widespread that more youth are willing to try it, thereby making it tolerable for non-drug user over time. So westernized culture for Muslims, it's a risk factor. Low socioeconomic status is a risk factor, and so on. A study reported that teenagers born from immigrant parents are more likely to experience identity conflict, leading to stress and insecurity, as well as an increase in the risk of developing behavior of cannabis use. There is a pressure by the host culture in youth to assimilate for cultural acceptance, leading to cannabis use. So basically, it's a sense of belonging. Prevention programs in Muslim society. There are currently no drug use prevention programs in Saudi Arabia, school or in the community. These issues are not talked about openly. The stigma of using illicit drugs is still prevalent in Saudi society. While preventative programs have proved to be a greatest service to communities as a whole, users usually seek help late in Saudi Arabia, which is usually when the individual is admitted to hospital for addiction treatment. Treatment programs. Despite the lack of prevention programs, treatment of drug abuse in Saudi Arabia is amongst some of the best in the region. Drug users are treated with detoxification, behavior modification, and rehabilitation. Treatment programs include pharmacotherapy, psychotherapy, spiritual therapy, social services, education, and recreational activities. So it's a biopsychosocial approach. Conclusion: Muslim youth are at risk of being stigmatized in their community, placing them at a great risk of addiction and inability to seek help and treatment when necessary. Understanding the social dynamics of religion helps clinicians to provide a culturally sensitive environment in which needs of Muslim youth can be addressed. Research regarding Muslim youth and cannabis use needs to focus on attitude toward cannabis and other drug use. This will guide government, policymakers, healthcare workers, and boards of education when managing Muslim youth policies, encouraging them to implement drug prevention program in schools. Recommendation: school-based prevention programs have the potential to be of great influence on vulnerable youth. These programs must be created in conjunction with religious beliefs. This will allow the Muslim youth to be educated culturally in an appropriate way by giving them an easy to grasp understanding of dangers of cannabis and other forms of drugs. Furthermore, these programs will be able to offer students tools to resist drug offers from peer, because we said earlier that peer pressure is the huge risk factor. Community-based program, it's also a recommendation, might also provide discreet and anonymous intervention with families within the community. This would allow cannabis users and their families to receive the help and education they need without disgracing the individual or the family. These programs may involve education for the whole family, giving them tools to cope, manage, and build a stronger family, which in turn helps to strengthen the community as a whole.